My name is John Riggs. I'm just moderating the panel today.
Yeah. We had a lot of issues with fisticuffs, so we needed a moderator.
Yeah. Break it up.
Yeah.
Always. But this is my again. My name is John Riggs. How are you feeling? This is my third time here at SAC Gamers Expo. Had a wonderful time. Couldn't wait to come back. And one of the reasons I had to come back was because my buddy Nintendrew was here for the very first time.
Hey. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first time in Sacramento, I believe.
I was going to say, that was going to be my first question. Have you been to Sacramento before?
No, I feel like I've been to every other major city I think of California for, except for Sacramento.
Okay.
like I've been to San Diego, and I've been to LA, of course, and
sure,
all around, but never this neck of the woods. So I'm excited.
San Francisco at all? With your coding background? Okay,
yeah.
But never here. And when you're already a local, because you're already pronouncing it right. How do you say it? The town.
Sacramento?
Yep.
How do you say that wrong?
Well, the T is silent.
Oh, okay.
Nobody says Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Yeah, it's just Sacramento. That was fun. So let's... We're very professional over here. You stop it.
Well, John he's here too because he was one of my biggest initial inspirations to get started with retro gaming content on YouTube.
Aww.
So it was really cool to come full circle and eventually get to know the guy and pal around with him. And he's the reason I go to any conventions because otherwise I would be a complete homebody.
Right. Yeah, I'll usually reach out to other conventions saying, "Oh, you got to get this guy over here," And it's really just a reason for us to hang out anyway. So
yeah,
we can take that. You're going to hear a little bit about Nintendrew's growing up with video games. He came from coding before YouTube. Talk about what happened with YouTube and maybe some future projects and all that. And we'll definitely do a Q&A afterwards, too. So if you have any questions, keep them in mind, and we'll do some Q&A at the end of this panel. But let's start all the way back to so when you were a baby, like 5 or 6 years ago, when when you started...
I'll take it.
Hey,
I'm 31. I'm happy to be a baby now. That's fine.
That's right. Do you remember the first game you played? And again,
yes.
we're varying. I can look out, and we're varying in ages here too. So, and me, who's in my 40s and everything. So when you hear, and I don't. I'm sure you've told me. I don't even know this story. But what was the first video game you remember playing?
Well, if I'm being completely honest, it was probably something stupid on MS-DOS, like Number Munchers or something that was actually the first game I ever played.
Sure.
But the first game that really sticks to me, it was fundamental for me, a core memory in gaming that I was like, oh, this is a video game, was Jazz Jackrabbit. So the first title out of Epic Mega Games at the time, now Epic Games, still in the industry,
right?
With Fortnite, of course. But their first foray was Cliff Bleszinski's kind of Mega Man Sonic hybrid clone on PC.
Okay.
So it's just a game where, if you're not familiar, you play as a green jackrabbit who has this giant blue crayon-looking rifle gun. So it's kind of like a run-and-gun Mega Man Sonic hybrid on PC. Super fun. And my uncle showed it to me. I think it was probably a shareware demo of the game on floppy disks at the time,
right?
In the mid '90s, and I was enamored.
Right. And your uncle showed you because you didn't have video games growing up, right?
Yeah. No, I lived a very sheltered existence. I was not allowed to have any games that were not explicitly educational in nature. So if you couldn't find them at the library or at a school, I couldn't have it at home until I was 13. So 13 was when and to directly age me, that was the year that the DS Lite came out. It was 2004, or 2000. No, 2006. Sorry, yes, 2006. Thank you for my math. Yeah. No, I was thinking the original DS was 04. Yeah. So I got a DS Lite with New Super Mario Brothers. Was the first non-educational game that I got, and I remember that whole ad campaign leading up to New Super Mario Brothers was just celebrating the history of Mario leading up to that point. And so when I got it, I played it and I was obsessed, and I 100% of that game multiple times. And I think it's I was just locked in. So I knew at that point I wanted to figure out everything that led up to this point, everything that influenced this, and I wanted to know the story of that culmination of history at that point. Right. And that was what really got me interested.
So New
in
Super
games.
Mario Brothers was new to you. Now, were you familiar with Mario before this?
Yes, and I would have if people would another formative game for me was if I could download it and play it on the family computer, I could play it. So I played Cave Story, as an example. Cave Story was another very formative game that I played back in the mid 2000s. But specifically for Mario, I remember around that age I like learned about and got into emulation, especially after it may have been after I got New Super Mario Brothers actually, where I like kind of went back and like was trying to explore some of what influenced all that, and then I started going to the local flea markets and trying to see what consoles I could pick up, and of course the rest is history. But I was familiar, so like the first. Another big like core memory in gaming, I think, for me was Donkey Kong 64, because my mom for a period she would babysit for one of her coworkers on occasions, like over the weekend, and she would bring me over to their house while she was babysitting. And the dad of that family had a Nintendo 64 in the living room with one game. It was Donkey Kong 64, and I had never played a real, especially a 3D game at the time, and so my poor little underdeveloped brain, I was like trying to get through Donkey Kong 64, and I would get to the point where I think it was like right before you unlock, like you rescue Diddy Kong and get his little like double shooters or whatever. I played like the first hour of Donkey Kong 64 probably 30 times, like over the times that I would go visit, and I was just obsessed with it. And I remember thinking, I mean, I was probably no older than 11 at that age, and I was thinking like the graphics never need to get better than this. Like Donkey Kong 64 looks so good. I was obsessed. So as far as Mario in particular, like some bits and pieces there, I knew he was the pinnacle of like iconic in gaming.
Right.
So that's where I wanted to start with New Super Mario Brothers, and that kind of fostered that sprawling
because
hobby.
imagine if Donkey Kong 64 was your first experience, and your mom or parent, however it came up to be. Never mind the DS. Wouldn't it be funny, and maybe you already know where I'm going with this, where your mom finally says, all right, here we go, Nintendo 64, Donkey Kong, good old Donkey Kong. Let's pop in Donkey Kong 64 and listening to that DK rap.
Oh, yeah.
Where they say we'll have a hell of a time.
Yeah, we skip past that part, so Mom doesn't see that. Yeah. No.
So now that you're getting caught up and you're making your way through high school and all that, from someone who didn't even play a video game until about 13 years old, what made you go from playing your first game to, I guess, 5 years later, going to Digipin?
Yeah.
And also remind you, and if you ever, does everyone know what Digipin is? Brief history. What is Digipin?
Digipin is specifically a game development and design university based out of Redmond, Washington. They for a time they shared a campus with Nintendo, their corporate Nintendo America campus. Now they're separate, but for a long time, like a lot of direct hires at Nintendo of America were through Digipin, and so I'm sure the way that I learned about them was through Nintendo Power. Like they had full page ads about going,
it was,
or maybe Game Informer, like other.
It seemed like they were linked.
At the time.
I mean, I remember the ads made it seem very much so like go to Digipin and get a job with Nintendo.
Yeah,
and that was kind of the draw. Now, whether it actually happened or not, apparently,
right.
To an extent, maybe.
Well,
to some people.
the thing is that Digipin was a very it's a great institution. I have nothing bad to say about Digipin. They've one of my favorite stories of game dev actually is Portal. Anybody familiar with Portal out of Valve? So the team that made Portal was hired by Gabe Newell from like a job fair day basically at Digipin as I understand it.
Right.
And so they have this kind of lore at Digipin about the team because they made this little demo called Narbacular Drop, which I think you can still find the demo of it somewhere online. But it's directly like the mechanics of Portal, and then when Gabe reportedly, I guess when he saw it, he was like, that's awesome. When you're done with school, come work for us and make that. And so that's a fun little. But so anyways, it's a prestigious institution, very expensive. So I did not go there for like an undergraduate degree. What I did is I went when I was in high school. I went for a couple of the years of the summer games development workshop. So it was each year 2 weeks of 8 hours a day. Just kind of a crash course of learning what they teach their students about game development, and just trying to see if that's what I wanted to do with my career. And it was funny because they have 3 years, 3 levels of the game development program, and I had already been messing with like Game Maker and stuff at home. So my mom was convinced. She called them and was like, you've got to let him into level 2 to start because he's been doing this for too long. He's not going to learn anything, and I'm not paying for this if he's if he's not going to learn
Classic
anything.
Mom.
Yeah, so they got me into level 2 to start with, and it was great.
It worked.
I did level 2 and level 3, and I still have my little certificate from Digipin Project Fun Summer Workshops. Yeah. Did you have a question? Oh, okay.
Where before Digipin, how did you get into coding? I suppose, like what experience did you have you can't just show up to DigiPen with a zero knowledge of anything. You know, maybe that's where level 1 comes into play.
That's kind of what the Project Fun workshops were about. Like, is like they did not require. Well, I mean,
Like, so it's
level
like
one.
day one drag and drop, or what's, you know?
So actually, they were working with C# in X and A. Like
Oh.
it was actual program.
Well, that's right into the lion's den, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And but I had experience on my own with Game Maker predominantly. I spent a lot of time with the Game Maker studio back when it was Mark Overmars and his little pet project.
Right.
And of course, since then there have been many amazing games that have been created with Game Maker. Undertale, Hyper Light Drifter, Hotline Miami, like some amazing titles. Mm-hmm. So it's grown into its own engine of respect in its own right. But yeah, it was because of my kind of like home. I remember at one point I made like one game I was obsessed with growing up. It kind of fell into that educational category. Was Chips Challenge. Does anybody know Chips Challenge? It's a little almost Sokoban type puzzle game where you're getting key cards but it's a top-down PC DOS puzzle game.
It's on Atari Lynx. That's what I know it as.
Yes. So I used to play that at my grandma's house of all places, but I loved that game. So I would like spend time in Game Maker making like recreations of Chips Challenge, where I was like, they never made Chips Challenge 2. I want to make Chips Challenge 2. And so like just little fun projects like that are where I really got started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens after DigiPen? You get your certificate, you're good to go, you go back home.
So I knew at that point that, well, I knew from very early on, like as soon as I had the words for the terms for the objects, I knew I wanted to do something with computers. Like it was magic to me that like I had a TV that was like I could move a thing and interact with it. And like how does this work? Like how do you get from an idea to an interactive experience that you can interact with? Like that's just wild. But so I knew I wanted to be working on computers in some regard. So then after I got New Super Mario Brothers and was obsessed with Mario, Nintendo especially, I was like, okay, games. This is it. Like I want to do something with games. So that was when I messed with Game Maker, did DigiPen, and then I went for my undergraduate degree in computer science at Western Kentucky University, which was my local university in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And how'd that go for you?
It was great. So we started with Java there, which was pretty, like, it was fairly similar to the C# that I had learned during my short time at DigiPen. And then I had the opportunity that, like, anytime I had an intermediate or, like, senior software project where we, like, had any sort of agency to determine what we were going to work on, I was making a game. So,
all right. And then was that around the same time you started experimenting with YouTube videos as well?
Yes, actually, I mean that was around. So my high school and college years are kind of weird because it was blended because I went to like an on-campus high school college hybrid program in Bowling Green. It was the Gatton Academy of Math and Science. The whole name is the C.A.R.L. Martin Gatton Academy of Mathematics and Science in Kentucky at Western Kentucky University. I think it's the whole
of course. Everyone already knows that. That's fine. Yeah, you're good.
But so during that time, I was also experimenting with Source Filmmaker with Team Fortress 2 animations because I was obsessed with Team Fortress 2 at that time.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I built my first handful of 100 subscribers. And then, but after that point, long after I was working in the games industry, actually, I started thinking about retro gaming again and like how I could turn that into something that people would be interested to watch. So,
yeah. Someone with no experience until you were 13, and
yeah, making up for lost time. Like that was a real backfire on my parents' part, like trying to keep me away from this. That reverse psychology. Right. That'll do a number.
That'll do it.
Kushner?
Yeah, you brought up Undertale.
Uh-huh.
My question is relating to it, but have you played it is the thing.
Yes, I love Undertale. Best soundtrack in gaming, period.
Which boss fight in the game, in your opinion, had the biggest problem that made players frustrated?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm not sure. I didn't particularly run into anything that was overly frustrating, but I was also doing a pacifist route, so that might explain it. But no, because I mean, what comes to mind is the Sans fight, right? Like it's insane, but it's also like that feeling of accomplishment at the end of the genocide run when you're able to get that perfect run is just I would imagine. I mean, I haven't done it myself, but like
Genocide run is hard.
it's got to be worth the input for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I took the mercy route. Omega Flowey gave me the biggest problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Nicely done.
He just doesn't let you go.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
YouTube starts it, and So you're putting maybe game development on the back burner for now, but building a YouTube channel and
half and half. Yeah, like honestly, more locally, it's been like because I'm working on a free DLC update for C.A.R.L. That it's,
yeah.
it's,
But this is going back to like when you were like what?
Oh yes,
like,
yeah.
Probably like 7 years ago, when you started doing video game content on YouTube.
Yeah, it was about 8 years ago. Yeah,
about 8 years
2017 was when I changed the channel name to Nintendrew. It was Demand Wit the Plan before that.
The man with the plan. Okay. Yep.
And that was just when I was uploading my Team Fortress 2 content and random stuff. But then I was like, honestly, the single biggest moment for me, I think, with like game collecting as its own concept as a hobby, I guess, was well, two parts. One was when Amiibo came out in like 2014, I think. That was a huge part where I was like, oh man, like I thought Amiibo was the stupidest thing when they announced it. I was like, physical DLC, like come on, like why are we doing this? But then when they were selling out immediately, I was like, man, if I want a whole Smash Brothers set eventually, I'm gonna have to buy them now. And so I would go stand in line, and that's how I met a lot of friends that were like really into this stuff too. Was just waiting in line at Target for Rosalina and things like that. But and then another one that I remember was Jason did, and I always forget the guy's name, but Jason Metal Jesus Rocks had a video on. So he was visiting somebody else's Wii collection. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, Casey.
Casey, okay.
Yeah.
The giant wall of Wii games was like probably the length of this wall in this room,
Right.
but just spines of Wii titles.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's insane.
Yeah,
That's
he has a complete global set.
Yes, he has the complete Wii library.
Yeah, or did. I don't know if he still does, but
Right. But at that point, it was like, wait a minute, like, I love the Nintendo 64 because of Donkey Kong 64. That was like my introduction to games as fun, you know, outside of Jazz Jackrabbit. And I was like, the 64, at least in North America, only's got 296 titles. Like, that's way less than that.
Right.
I could do that. So that was the mentality of like that, like a full library was attainable. And then of course there's things like the Virtual Boy, which is no less painful due to the prices, but like there's only 14 titles that came out in the U.S. So like the Virtual Boy is another one that's like at least possible for an average collector. Oh, but
yeah. So you completed your 64?
yes, yeah. I got the full the Wii U Smash Brothers set, Wii U 3DS set of Amiibo. I finished,
Okay.
and I was like, I'm done.
Okay.
That's all I need. But and I've picked up some here and there, but when they look particularly cool. But
Yeah.
And then 64 and Virtual Boy. After that, I mean, the Virtual Boy has a special place in my heart as just being kind of an oddball system. Also, one that I got around the same time that I was doing the Digipin workshops.
Right.
I found it at a rummage sale in Seattle or in
Sure.
the Redmond. I think it was either Redmond or Bellevue. Like there was a weekend rummage sale at a church rummage sale that my mom found a Virtual Boy in a Ziploc bag for $7.
Oh.
And it had Red Alarm in it. And she says, "This has Nintendo on it. Do you want this?" And I was like, "Yep." And,
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the Virtual Boy that just had a special place in my heart, and again was very attainable, being only 14 titles. Jack Brothers hurts though, but
Yep.
but yeah.
So when it comes around to your, now you're making these videos again, and you still have your game coding knowledge in the background. When did C.A.R.L come about?
Oh man! So the very first iteration of C.A.R.L was actually back in 2012, right before my first actual game dev job. So right as I was about to graduate college.
Okay.
I made a little prototype in Game Maker to start, and it was specifically based on trying to copy Cave Story's physics because I really loved the way that it felt simultaneously really floaty but also very precise. Where like you had like these really like lofty jumps, but you never felt like it was cheap. Like you didn't know how to control quote in Cave Story,
Right.
at least in my opinion. So it was a really solid physics system that I wanted to kind of like unpack and figure out how they did. So I made a little prototype. Actually, the first iteration of what ended up being C.A.R.L is I was playing around with some pixel art, which was terrible back. I should find the original pixel art, and it is so funny because I was literally I was probably. I would have been 19, I guess, at this age, and I was so proud of this terrible pixel art and put this watermark of my full name across the whole thing. Andrew Kennedy, this is my pixel
Do not
art.
steal this.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Anyway, I'm so glad it went through some iterations before we launched. But the reason that I was able to is that, like I said, the first version of that was in 2012. It went through 3 different engines until we eventually launched in the end of 2021. No, 2022. Now I'm getting my years mixed up. But
right.
a couple of years ago. So it was a long time in the making for sure.
Okay.
And it went through many different forms.
So finally released. It's available on Switch, Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, digitally, physically soon.
Yes, so we are active. Like the pre-orders are available for the physical version of C.A.R.L. through Premium Edition games, and we have the limiting. I guess the bottleneck of the launch is that we want to make sure that everything that comes out for C.A.R.L. is on that physical cartridge. So we're trying to push this last new like free content update through Nintendo to get that through lot check to make sure that they approve all that.
Yep.
So once that is approved, we will get it on the cartridges and get it out to folks. So.
That's amazing. You haven't played C.A.R.L. yet? It's a it's a 2D platformer, pixel based. The one thing we didn't even talk about this whole time is you also did the music for it.
Yep.
Now, where does your music background come from?
Well, when I was growing up, I took about 9 years of piano lessons because I would pick out songs on the piano when I was like 3 or 4, and my parents were like, "Oh, he's a prodigy. We got to put him in piano lessons." and then I never practiced, so I never did anything practical with it. But but I got the basic theory, I guess, and then like I've always had fun playing. I've always like I've had a weird relationship with music because for the most of the longest portion of my life, I used music almost exclusively as like a tool to keep myself focused on other things that I like work or like in the background while doing chores or doing like that. It was kind of like I always saw music as part of something else or like a score to a movie rather than its own piece, like its own distinct art form.
Right. It enhances the art,
Right,
it's like
right.
salt.
And then, so a lot of the music that I really grew up on was like repetitive, like stuff with no lyrics, like instrumental electronic music. Daft Punk is my single biggest obsession over the year. Not that it's without lyrics, but you can kind of tone out rock, robot, rock, rock.
Pretty good.
So, I knew that when I made C.A.R.L., I wanted the music to be a big part of the experience. So, like, if you play, you'll notice that a lot of the platforms and enemies are we built a music system that allows the platforms and enemies and entities within the levels to sync to the music. So if you are paying attention to the music in the background, you'll have a better chance of being able to time your jumps onto these platforms. That was also a very direct way inspired by New Super Mario Brothers.
I was just gonna ask that if that was that inspiration.
Yeah, like the little Koopas where everyone bop bop.
Yeah. they did a little freeze frame every time.
Yeah.
Throws your timing off every time. So there we go. And then fast forward to today, and here we are. C.A.R.L.'s physical coming out soon.
Yep.
And you're coming out to more and more conventions, and here in Sacramento for the first time. So I encourage you to check out C.A.R.L. Even digitally, it's great, but grab the physical.
Yes, it is available, and that's honestly the most difficult part of the process was getting it out on all major platforms with only 2 devs. It was me and Matt Bittner, the solo dev of A Robot Named Fight. If you've ever played that or seen that on Steam or Switch,
right?
But it is available on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Switch. And I do not recommend for an indie developer to try to do that.
Yeah, and it's and available at the same time too. Where most people don't know, but when you create a video game and then put it on Switch or put it on Steam or anything else, it has to go through their own lot check. That's what it's called. Whether someone else has to look at it and approve it and play it and all that. And it's not the same person Nintendo has their own person, Xbox has their own, PlayStation has their own. So to do all that and then come through at the same time and make it all work and make sure the button labelling is all the same or anything like that. So there we go. So very, very cool. And then here we are. And then YouTube channel still going strong. And
Yep. Well, I've got some very interesting potential routes that I'm looking at for 2025 for some new, some very, I think, content that should be appreciatied by the core base, but something that is distinct from anything that I've done before.
Yeah.
So.
You've done unique videos on like unique Nintendo 64 cartridges that have like their own ports to them to building your own Switch arcade machine, with zero experience on how to build anything. Like physical. I mean, like actually had to cut the wood and all that. It's like, that was I want this, I'm going to make it.
My first woodworking project was that arcade cabinet, And I need to talk with you because there's one project that I've been thinking about recently. There's been a lot of buzz about Half-Life, and I've been back on the Half-Life train recently.
Oh, yeah.
This guy's working on Half-Life 2 RTX.
It's Friendier in this room. It's Friendier. It's not like there's like these 3 cameras recording back. So. Yeah. Anyway.
We'll cut it.
It's good. I promise. Yeah.
No, but like, there's been a lot of buzz about Half-Life recently, where there's a lot of there have been leaks coming from stuff pushed to deadlock, where a lot of people are actually talking about Half-Life 3 again, where it's been back in the news, where it's been, of course, a joke for 20 years.
Right.
And of course, the new anniversary, the documentary about Half-Life 2 was just phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that documentary. But something that I would like to do is a few years ago, I wish I could remember the dude's name, and I'll have to find him, and I'll absolutely give him credit if I end up doing this project. But somebody figured out a way basically to hijack the NES's graphics processor, where you could insert a Raspberry Pi into like an NES cartridge, and basically like kind of like a version of the Super FX chip on steroids, like where you could have a Raspberry Pi running like of course, their first project was Doom, running Doom on the NES. Yeah. But like where it would hijack the graphics processor to present like a dithered version of the 3D world running on the Raspberry Pi. So what I would love to do is make a demake of Half-Life 1 that could run like from an NES cartridge. That's one that I'm looking at for 2025. Also, the Wii phone. If you remember that meme from like 2006 where the like fake upcoming hardware. Right. One of them was the Wii phone. I want to recreate a phone that can play Wii titles. Yeah.
They sure did.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. Open up to questions here. We got a few minutes left. Questions about YouTube, questions about game development, anything like that, kind sir?
I mean, I just subbed to his YouTube when he was talking. I haven't been posting due to lack of time, but I plan to start posting again eventually. But is there any like advice you can give me?
Well, I would say that the single biggest piece of advice that I can give to somebody looking to start a YouTube channel, if you're trying to build an audience or like try to build that kind of momentum, I would say the single biggest thing that you can do is to focus on what you are most passionate about, the topics that you find personally most interesting, because there's most certainly going to be other people who share those interests with you. And so if you make the kind of videos that you would like to watch, so like one of the things that I was watching John Riggs here and Metal Jesus Rocks a lot, and one of the things that I wanted to know was like, what are some of the obscure or more sought after titles that I might find while I'm looking at flea markets or yard sales that are super valuable? So I wanted to see like what's the most like top 5 rarest games on the NES or top 5 rarest Game Boy Color games, and nobody was really doing that. So that was one of the first series that I did pretty regularly, was the top 5 rarest. So definitely try to find like the kind of content that you would like to watch and fill that void.
Yeah. Could be top 5 bosses from Undertale. You know?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
How has your content strategy evolved from since when YouTube introduced shorts, as they are now to go TikTok and Reels,
Sure.
And then now that they extended the shorts to 3 minutes to kind of match the other platforms, like what are you doing with that?
I am an old man when it comes to any form of short form content. I still don't understand it. I'm on my old person hill, and I've tried. I've tried a few different forms of short form content. You have got a lot of that unlocked. So
a little bit. It's not unlocked.
Just conquered.
Not even close to that either.
Sorry?
Opus Clip. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
Opus
I've used
Clip is
Opus.
great.
Yeah.
My YouTube strategy is, it was told to me by someone else, my YouTube mentor, where it's like shorts for exposure, long form is the foundation, like your 8-minute video, 10-minute, whatever your actual videos are. Long form is the foundation for that. But then shorts are great for visibility, like just for exposure. For the most part, they're not going especially with watch time being everything. Like if someone watches one of my videos, like, hey, here's a bunch of Super Nintendo games that came out in 1996. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if that's the first time they see it, they'll go back and watch, here's the games that came out in 97, or go back to 98, 99, whatever, then go down that rabbit hole. People who are watching shorts might just be like flipping through shorts like they do TikTok.
Yeah. And
there's a I don't even know what the percentage is, but your video will probably not show up next on shorts. But it might reach a new audience. And then there's also live streaming too, which is like the loyalty.
Yeah.
So, so my shorts feed is either just, especially now, because it used to be when you would post a short, it would also be blast to your subscriber base, and then sometimes it'd be like, well, I'm not following a shorts channel, unsubscribe. But they've changed that finally now too.
Thankfully.
And then something with Opus AI, if anyone doesn't know. And again, I'm super anti AI for a lot of things, but what Opus does is, go ahead. Oh yeah. Opus is fantastic because they'll take your existing video and then already chop it up for you and add subtitles. And then you can have the short link to your long form video. So if
Right,
they see a clip
right.
of it, and I see a lot of great podcasts doing that now, which I think is great. They'll just show you like, oh, here's
Yeah.
just the media. You'll see just a quick clip, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then like for the rest of the interview, it won't actually say that, but you can clip on that or click on that, and it'll go to go to the full video. So
Yeah.
yeah. So even if you don't like doing shorts, or even if you don't like doing if you don't like filming shorts specifically for shorts, something like that's perfect. Like have your long form video and then chop that up, and then have those be the shorts that link to the full video.
I will take your advice. I'll do that.
Yes,
I'll make some
as you
shorts.
should. And you can do that to videos that have already existed.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah.
So.
It'll go to like Instagram. You can
Sure.
get all the
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and once the short, I mean, the work's already done. So why not put it on Instagram? Why not put it on TikTok or whatever? You know, it's just anything's. It's all free. I mean, it's already out there. So you already did the work. Yeah.
How are we doing on time?
Oh, we're good. We still got yes, way in the back.
Yeah.
Favorite
That
Daft
is
Punk album.
tough.
Tron Legacy.
Yeah, the Tron Legacy soundtrack.
I mean, it's pretty good.
Tron's not bad. Yeah.
The best Daft Punk music video ever.
I think I would have to say Discovery. I think what? Okay, yeah. Good,
Is
good,
yours
good.
also Discovery?
Good.
I take it.
Mine is Tron and Discovery, but I also like their final.
Oh.
Yeah. That was very solid.
It's
yeah.
never a final album. Come on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure.
Have you seen the E3 2010 Paper Mario Sticker Star trailer that was found recently?
No. That sounds interesting.
Did you find it?
It was recently dumped like a couple days ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very
Were
cool.
you the one that recently dumped it? Wait a minute. What are you telling us? Come on now.
I have a very storied past with Sticker Star.
You have a footnote version for us?
Yeah, I was so high. I would love Paper Mario. Super Paper Mario is my second favorite game of all time. The Stanley Parable is my favorite game of all time. The Super Paper Mario is a very close second. I was super looking forward to Sticker Star, and then I played it, and anybody who plays it should know why. But no, it was not the same, and I thought this is when I was doing my first game dev job, like pretty early on. And I thought it was a problem with me. Like I thought, like, oh no, I've like built my career around this, and now I don't like games anymore. This is a Mario game. This is a Paper Mario game.
Yeah.
And I'm not having fun.
Oh no.
Oh no. So I had like a month-long spiral where I thought I was just out. Like I grew out of games. I was like, oh man, like everything I've like every hobby I've had, I've dropped it at some point. This is it. I've now dropped gaming, and I'm done. And then I was like, no, okay, other people don't like it either.
You're not alone. Fantastic. One last question. Oh, okay. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have 3 dish for street passing?
Yes, I do. I've got it in the other room back there. But excellent,
Nice.
excellent. Good
Are you
deal.
here
Good deal.
I brought mine, and it's in my backpack in the hotel room. So
Well,
so if you're
bring
still
it
here
tomorrow. Yeah.
I'll bring it tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's the other question?
Yeah.
What would you give advice to someone who wants to like grow up to be like you?
Oh, that's a wonderful question.
He's a Dapper Dan man, is what it is.
Are you interested in specifically like game development or YouTube or both? Or YouTube? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I
He
think
wants to move to Kentucky, is what he's saying.
well, I don't know if I would recommend that. I think that like as long as you're following what you find personally interesting, you're gonna find like-minded people, especially like folks at a convention like this, that have those same interests and are willing to like engage with content that you're passionate about. So I think no matter what you're doing, as long as it's something that you feel like is worth talking about, somebody else is gonna think so too. And I think that's really a good way to just kind of have a broad mentality about if you're, no matter what your platform is, but if you're trying to reach an audience, I guess, in that way. And yeah, just another thing is like, don't be afraid to just try to figure something out. Like that's been something that a mentality that I've had on my channel from the beginning, is that like, if I mess up, I'll talk about it and like figure out somebody smarter than me who can tell me what I did wrong. and there's no other better way to grow and to expand your skill set and find new exciting things to do.
Yep. The best way to do something right is by doing it wrong on the internet.
Yep.
Someone else will be very quick to step up. and let you know. Cool. We got to clear out for the next panel, but thank you. And again, Nintendrew, first time here at SAC Gamers Expo.
Thank you all so much for coming out. I appreciate this first panel of the con. I didn't expect this many people, so I appreciate you all.
And we're still hanging out center court as well, so you have more questions later or something's like, oh, I should have asked him. We'll be hanging out all day today, all day tomorrow, and have a great show. We'll see you later. Thank you so much.
Of course.